Joining us is Denis Campbell. He is editor-in-chief of UK Progressive Magazine. He also hosts Worldview with Denis Campbell on YouTube at youtube.com/worldviewshow. Denis, we've been talking about Syria basically every single day on the program. Today, we didn't in the first half. We thought we'd save it and talk to you. I think that there's been this trend in general happening when it comes to media coverage of Syria, where once corporate media starts talking about military action and danger and all of this type of thing, they kind of create the need to continue accelerating towards military action. And in part, that's led to a lot of black and white thinking on Syria, when we're really talking about shades of gray on a lot of issues. Do you agree? And if so, give us a couple of examples where you think this might apply.
Well, this whole situation has been completely lacking in nuance, and in some respects, I have to laugh when I listen to people like Morning Joe on MSNBC or some of the Fox bloviators. If you listen to them talk, on the one hand, President Obama is to be blamed for not rushing into war, and then he's to be blamed and being told he must go and get the approval of Congress. He goes and gets the approval of Congress. He's blamed for going to get the approval of Congress. And no one really takes a step back and looks at the complexity of the situation. I mean, we're talking about borders in Syria and in that entire region that were drawn 100 or more years ago by colonial powers, and they had absolutely nothing to do with whether or not it fulfilled any sort of tribal situation. You're dealing with areas that are largely under tribal control, that are largely under religious sect control, and you've got all of this nuance and gray area. Yet all you ever hear from the corporate media is a polarizing black or white solution that Syria is either bad or they're good. The solution is either strong or it's weak, when indeed diplomacy has lots of fits and starts. I mean,
yeah, and it just doesn't make good TV. It doesn't make good ratings to have a discussion where each person is not simply reciting a talking point. And, a lot of times the booking producers on these corporate media shows, and I've experienced it personally, they want to pre-interview you to know which side you're on, right? And there's really no opportunity, even with them. You won't even get booked in many cases unless you draw a line in the sand, or a red line, for lack of a better term, terms that have been used in this discussion. And like you're saying, it seems that every piece of the Syria situation has gray in it. Who takes over if the Assad regime goes down? Are they good or bad? We don't know the answers to many of these questions because it's just not clear.
And if you listen to what John McCain was saying yesterday in terms of, that this is now just a cooling off period, and that Assad was going to continue to brutalize his people, you've got a situation where you're being asked to step into the middle of a civil war in a very volatile region where there are so many different factions fighting in so many different areas. We've already seen how poorly that worked in Iraq. You now have a nation on the verge of collapse there. We've seen how poorly that's working in Afghanistan. We can't get out of there quick enough just to protect our backsides, whether it's the UK or the USA. And now we want to go headlong into another situation because the hawks on the one hand are saying, we've got to send a message. But now all of a sudden, all of these people, I was listening to the Oklahoma senator, is it Cornyn, I think his name is, standing there on the floor talking about all the ways in which the Obama administration has failed in this situation, when from my perspective, if I look at the way in which they've handled it, they've been handed a lifeline to seek that diplomatic solution, which they've said they've always wanted. Now they're being beaten up for doing that. It's just a situation where there's no way this president or this administration can win, yet they're head and shoulders, at least globally speaking, above the cowboys that dragged us into Iraq in 2003.
Yeah, I haven't really been commenting that much on this aspect because I thought it might just be better to let's see how things are resolved before I even go down this line. But it is very, very interesting that when factually speaking, you look at this, President Obama, number one, did make a decision, which was he thinks that there should be military strikes. So he is not a guy who is simply not willing to make decisions. He, at the same time, is involving Congress in either going along with that or rejecting that plan. So he is not acting unilaterally. he also may end up overseeing, even if it ends up being because of a silly, kind of not silly, but an offhanded question asked to Secretary Kerry of what could be done to avoid the military action. He might end up with a diplomatic solution. These are all things that are very positive when you think about it from afar, but internally, the political division is so significant that nobody's even taking a step back and saying, maybe he's actually doing a good job here.
Well, that's it, and you've also got you got a couple of issues here. You've got the polarized nature of cable news. I mean, let's go back to 2003. Yes, there was cable news, but not the proliferation of it and blogs and social media and the instant punditry and instant reaction that you see to everyone and everything. And what I'm advocating and saying is that we need to perhaps take a step back and allow the process to work itself out. Now, for example, you don't hear much from Egypt now, but there is a concerted effort in that country to bring together the more moderate factions on all sides of the issues to try and cobble a solution. And quite frankly, I think they're probably grateful that most of the attention is now on Syria, so they actually have a chance to do that. It's when you're in the glare of these 24/7, 365, media machines that need to be constantly fed by all these talking hairdos and these talking pundits that don't know anything, that you find yourself saying, wait a minute, no, that's not true. I remember 2.5 years ago, during the initial phases of the revolution, I'd have to spend from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock, 11 in the morning to 1 o'clock in the afternoon, doing nothing but writing to these pundits who were going out and saying things that were patently untrue. They were patently false. You've really got to get your act together and have some sort of an inner ethos that says, I want to get the story right versus just putting out talking points. And if the sooner we do that, the more we can step back and look at it. I think people are going to, for example, love Obamacare once they start to see it. What are they doing? They're trying to shut it down in so many different ways that aren't going to work. Let the cerebral thinking president have a chance to think it through and work it through, as opposed to the cowboy that just immediately pulls out the 6-gun and starts shooting.
No question. And there's been no shortage of areas on which we can criticize President Obama. Let's be open to the possibility that he may have actually handled this okay, but we'll wait until it settles out before making that call. Denis Campbell, UK Progressive Magazine, and youtube.com/worldview show. We'll take a break. We'll have your voicemails and much more right after this.